say let's talk life. Let's not incriminate ourselves. I'll just edit this part out.
What? Don't edit it and don't say anything. That was fucking amazing.
Let's talk life.
Let's talk.
All right. So the last episode, we were talking about people pleasing and how we wanted to talk about it this time. So on that note, do you think it's easy for you to fall in the habit of people pleasing when you're starting to get in the audio industry? Because from my experience, I had to realize I was doing that and then kind of come to terms with it. But
I feel like
it's easy too.
Yeah, I feel like it expands more than just the audio industry. I think that can even go as deep rooted as like family and people pleasing, family and friends and anything like that. I think people pleasing can be extremely detrimental to your energy because then you're getting out of yourself to try to please somebody. And I'm still guilty of it. It's not that I don't like want people to feel good, but it's also I have to maintain my energy as well.
Yeah, I think that the more I've been working on just music and working with artists now, I've been really trying to find that good balance of hearing exactly what they want, but then not just people pleasing and doing my own thing. So on that note, do you feel like sometimes people make music just to please the audience? Like they don't start out making music that they enjoy. They start out making music that they think will make them money. Like, do you feel like that's still
I
common now?
think I think it all depends on like what you like. When I first started, I was into like the underground, like independent stuff, and then like moved into the mainstream because I was like, dude, I did this like bar, pen shit for forever, and I was like, I just want to vibe and feel good, and that's just music I started listening to, and then I noticed that this is what the people listen to when I'm out too. So I was like, I'm gonna just ride this little vibe wave because it feels good.
Okay. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I feel like being someone is who had the experience I did, it was interesting actually seeing the different side of the music industry where there's people that learn how to play to become great performers, but they don't learn how to play to create music. And I think this is important because I think everybody should know their role. Do you feel like now, because of the industry changing and the fact that like live shows and things are a lot of, big artists are the canceling live shows, a lot of live shows have been kind of like slowing down, do you feel like it's getting to this point of people are people pleasing too much as artists, like they're trying to appease the crowd too much and it's just not working for them? Or do
I
you
think I think any real genuine artist kind of just is just gonna do what they want until they find what they want to do. You can't really tell an artist shit. The artist is just gonna be like, yeah, no, fuck you. Like they might, you know what I mean? Like they might pick up tips along the way, and then those things will resonate later, or they won't. You know what I mean? But I think the artist is just gonna do whatever the fuck they want, and you have to understand, like, you have to give the artist like that person does this person does that person does this person does that, and just like look at it in the perspective like they're the artist. Like, how can you tell an artist what to paint? That wouldn't even be right. I mean,
that's
you know what I mean?
okay.
You can't tell an artist what to paint, but you can give the artist like an insight and then let them paint. If you can't paint, you know what I mean?
Okay, so as I think that we haven't really touched on this, but both Boogie and I have developed artists before, as in like we've worked with them directly one on one in the studio and coached them and given them advice in their own ways of when they are recording. So what do you think, being in that role, like what do you think are tips that we could give people that
I fucking hate doing that shit.
well, but I'm gonna be honest. Like,
I'm not.
if you're, engineering, right, and you gotta help
Yeah.
somebody, what are tips that you can give people to give advice but not tell an artist how the fuck to paint the picture. You know what I'm
Dude,
saying?
I'm not even gonna lie. I feel like where I'm at now, I almost feel like that's a form of people pleasing.
Yeah, you think
Yeah, like
answering that
kind of,
question, just
kind of
answering
like,
the question, or just doing the
but
thing?
no, doing like in the studio, like trying to like people please with when like you're trying to people please to get the best thing out of them. I mean, of course, I do it anyways, but there is a point where it becomes too much, and you have to just sit back and let the artist be the artist and paint how they're gonna paint
Okay.
because you as an engineer or a producer can get in the way too. That's a huge thing too. Like you don't want to get in the way of the artist, but if they did a line where you're like, "Yo, you can say that line better," definitely tell them that, you know. But don't I don't know. Don't try. I don't know. I've done it in the studio, like try to people please and be like, "Oh, this shit's dope." And like, there's been situations where it's not, but then there's also situations where it's absolutely amazing, and you're like, you know what I mean? So you gotta. I'm working on finding the fine line of like where to interject and where to not, and just be silent.
Okay, yeah, and I feel like that was gonna be kind of like my next question. I think it's interesting that it's kind of like I'm interviewing you and just asking questions, and it's more like that, like I'm an interviewer and you're like telling me things, but at the same time, I think that I'm asking questions that open up the conversation enough. What are things that you think make it easy for an engineer to make it so they're not getting in the way of an artist? Like, what do you think are things that you could put into
When,
place?
from an engineer perspective, when you go in and you're recording somebody, mic placement where you have them on the mic, like how their distance on the microphone, try to give them like the tips of proximity effect and all those things so they get the best recording possible. So it makes it easier on the engineer to have an even audio recording. So when it goes down to mixing, you're not having to like do too much.
Okay, awesome. And when it comes to most artists that you work with, did you work with people who wrote a lot and would have their takes ready? Or do you think most people are very freeform? Like, do you think most of the clients you dealt with really would just go in and punch and do it punch by punch? Like,
Well, when I started working with an abundant amount of artists, it was a lot of people were just coming in with their written bars and ready to go and slapping them on there. But I introduced a lot of people to punching because we were getting better records out of punching lines instead of them just going and running out of breath. And we were getting more quality recordings. And so even people that wrote, I would have them punching. And then some of the people that wrote quit fucking writing and they just went in there and started doing the shit. That was cool too. That was cool, the experience, like being around people who just kind of picked up on the energy in the room and they were like, yeah, fuck writing, bro, I got this shit.
okay. Okay, that's very interesting because I think that give it, we have to look at it from the way it was originally done. Like, originally, music, especially the best artists, right? Like David Bowie, only did their music in two takes, but it was because it was a different time and they had to
Hmm.
understand with like tape, man. They're like, is that your best take? Is
Yeah,
that the
I get
best?
it. I
Right.
Yeah, 100%.
But I think that now I think punching is actually a good thing in a lot of ways because it just allows you to just freely say you didn't waste the time. Like, you captured the energy that exact moment that it came out, and it's not like you let anything slide. Like, it's kind of
Hmm.
like allowing the most natural performance of the record. Now, I think, this is a good question, is like, when do you get a point with an artist where you're like, look, either we as in, look, either you need to change the way this is structured, or we're gonna have to punch this and edit this anyways, and this is how it's gonna sound. Like,
Honestly, when it gets to that point in the studio, I'm not people pleasing at all.
okay, good.
I'm just like, I let them get their shit off, and then I'll just like let them do it how they want to do it. And if they don't know how to structure a song, I can't just keep giving that type of information like, oh, do this, do that, do this, do that, because that shit has been accumulated over years and years and years. I can't just give you all the sauce like that. It's just it's too it's
You
when
know,
you've done it for forever. You know what I'm saying? You
and
worked
now that
hard
I
enough
think
to know
about
song
it,
structure.
I'm just like, you know what? You're so right. Because I think the problem has been that I was doing it for free for so long, and I just kept forgetting the fact that I paid for a hard drive, I paid for a computer, I paid for all of these things. When do I stop people pleasing and
You also
realize that
yeah,
it's time? That's data on my hard drive. That's things that
you
I could be doing with my own stuff.
and you also spent the time and sat there alone for hours on hours on hours figuring this shit out, watching interviews, catching one gem out of an hour long interview, like that shit, like
Tutorials, all that,
time
even going to
time
school all the
time
time.
yeah, time is the most precious thing. You spent time, you should be reimbursed for your time financially, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And I do you think that people pleasing does block your abundance sometimes?
100%, because if you're too kind to people, they will fucking take every inch they can get.
That's very true. It's the finesse. Do you feel like the environments that you really were working in, that was very much because now that I look back at kind of
Well, see,
collectively who I worked with, that's what I'm starting to recognize is what the finesse was. And that I can't be mad about it. You just have to understand what the game is. And
it's a
that's what they
learning
play.
process.
Right.
It's a learning process, and it's not even that that's what they play. It's what the game is. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna just give it to me, okay, I'll take it. But it's like the person has to understand their value as well. They have to understand what they're worth and their value. And somebody told me when I was running a studio recently, like, yeah, bro, don't let nobody walk on you, bro. And this is, you know what I'm saying? Like, he told me, like, yeah, bro, you can't let nobody step on you like that. And within a week, I walked away from that shit.
That's fair enough. That makes a lot of sense because I would think that if I was experiencing that, that's exactly what would happen. But there was points in time where I think starting out, you're starting to make your connections and you get deeply connected with somebody and you might still be kind of like attached to the idea of working with new people. And we forget like how many people actually really step into their artistry. And
I
I,
think it also depends on relationships too.
yeah,
Because if you build a solid foundation with somebody, you understand where they're at with it and you understand who they are as an individual. But if you're just jumping out in that shit and these people just called you and they want a session, that's a completely different situation. You don't fucking know them.
right.
You know what I like? You don't know them. You haven't built a relationship with them. You haven't struggled with them. It's a completely different situation. And I've had major blessings, like when I was out there doing what I was doing, and people showed love to me. You know what I mean? And shit they didn't have to do. You know, people did things for me they didn't have to do. People brought me places they didn't have to bring me. But you understanding your value and understanding somebody else's value, you realize the value in that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting saying that too, just because like I'm starting to see where I'm now absolving myself of those people pleasing tendencies and how easy it is to fall in the trap of wanting to do that because it's very comfortable. Like I've noticed the stuff that does well on social media is a lot of the stuff like I'm not even really trying to make anymore musically. And what I realized is there's nothing wrong with that.
It
Like,
boils down to being emotional and knowing when to cut your emotions off.
right, and I think that that's what has been the problem with me now addressing my own abundance is like the attachment to those survival mechanisms that got me here, but now
Mm-hmm.
recognizing like, damn, the people pleasing, all of that, that's where it comes from. It's like it's like recognizing why I was doing it in the first place, and it was because it was a survival mechanism. It brought comfort and it brought those things into play. But that's the thing is, I'm
For
realizing the best music isn't made in survival. It's made
I
in a
think I think some of it is. I think some of it is. For me, it was me having to figure out how to not people please
So
like
like
at
basically
all.
capturing where you are. Like that's sometimes where the best music is. It doesn't matter cuz
In
you
the
know what?
moment.
That's a very good point. There's some songs that I wrote where like I was just riled up. Maybe I was just horny, maybe I was just high and fucking drunk and I'm like, "Yeah, bro, I got some shit to say."
Hmm.
And I'm on my
Yeah,
phone. So
100%.
so now that
But
I'm actually
detaching the emotions from it is such a huge thing because you have to
Mhm.
understand that because the main reason you do that is because you're trying to, it's people pleasing. It boils down to people pleasing because you want that person to feel good, but that person should already have that within themselves.
It's not
So
your
why it's not
responsibility.
my responsibility to people please you. It's my responsibility for me to be me and then you to be you and figure out whoever, you know what I mean? It's for them to figure out and for you it's for, what's understood doesn't have to be explained.
Okay, yeah, that's a better way of saying
But
that.
it's I mean you can help people reach that point and just by even me speaking on it, it just solidifies it within myself to maintain my ground and to hold that shit firm and still understand that I'm a good dude and don't fuck anybody over. That's part of the game. You're not supposed to fuck people over either. Like you're not supposed to do that. That's not good juju. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't just be fucking people over, but you also have to just maintain your energy, protect your energy because by people pleasing, you give up your power because that's just how it works energetically.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like knowing when to stand your ground. Okay, I think that's always the tough part of where you have to balance the people pleasing aspect of life cuz I feel like a lot of times you don't want to overstep your boundary with people, but you have to recognize when you're getting stepped on. And I think that when you're okay, for engineers and artists that or engineers that work with artists, what do you think is something that is a very common thing that happens like that? I would say for me, it would be like, do you think it's crazy to ask for money up front for the session before you even go in? Like, what's your philosophy on that?
Depends on the relationship.
Okay, so first time client.
Well, I mean, I guess it doesn't really fucking matter, honestly, because I can fucking record you, and if you don't fucking pay me, I'm not gonna give you your shit. You know what I'm
Okay, well, yeah, because
saying?
like my philosophy would be like, if I'm not getting paid, why am I even wasting my time? So I'm
Yeah,
curious, like the upfront, like, do you think it's a better business philosophy where it's like you're in the studio, you're guaranteed, and they pay upfront to book the time, or do you think it's better
I don't
to?
think it, I don't think it really matters. But I mean, I would. The only thing that I would say matters is if people book in advance and they put like half down on the studio session, because then that lets you know that they're coming, and you don't just book that fucking window of time, and then these motherfuckers don't show up because they ain't really about it. Like that's happened a million times,
So you
you know.
ask for half up front, and basically whatever that half is non-refundable. Like it's just a
Yeah, bro, I'm at the studio. Where the fuck are you at? You told me you were gonna be here.
exactly okay. That's a great. See, that's what's important. Is I feel like even if it's just starting your engineering business and doing it from your own home studio, I think sometimes people don't even want to start because deep down they haven't addressed those people pleasing tendencies
Hmm.
that you might have. And I think that actually bringing this up to you and talking to you about it is helping me realize like when I was working in my own home studio where I was trying to have people pleasing tendencies because I either saw their talent or saw their connections plus their talent and realized that deep down, even though I saw that, they didn't see that I was, they didn't see the work that I was putting in as important. They saw
Nobody
me,
sees
yeah,
nobody sees the time that you put in.
right,
Nobody sees that. They just see what you are now.
right.
And when that's the situation, that's where your value comes in. Like you didn't spend all these nights sitting by yourself like I did learning this shit. So,
Well, yeah, I mean,
you know,
granted, some of them did, but they didn't like. I mean, I've definitely spent more time, like clearly,
that's
but
my point.
right,
But you have that understanding. That's my point.
right.
Is like I've spent so much more time and worked on this shit obsessively, and you think you can just walk up in here and I just,
I think no.
I
What
don't know.
so
I think by applying that pressure, it kind of lets them know like, are you gonna walk through this door or are you not? Because if you're not gonna
mm,
walk through this door and you can't take that kind of pressure, then that's gonna like weed out the bullshit. Because by you keeping that energy, people are the serious ones are gonna come back, and the ones who don't really give a fuck aren't gonna come back.
no, this is good. I'm glad I'm talking to you about
Or
this.
the ones that don't give a fuck are gonna go home and fucking get in the gym and fucking practice and learn some shit, and you're gonna inspire them to fucking step up so they know that they can walk in the room
Okay,
with you.
good. Like that's the other side of that too. Is just like I don't have any bad blood on it. I'm just starting to recognize like when what was going on, like why was I having very similar relationships, and really I had to recognize now sitting here like, okay, it's not that these things couldn't move forward, it's that my people pleasing tendencies got the best of me because they saw, hey, he knows all these things and it looks like he's willing to do them, and there was no true reciprocation when it came to like like them wanting to do cover art or them wanting to book times other than what it was for their own stuff. Like they would still do business with me, which is awesome, but they weren't doing regular business with me. It would be like, hey, every once in a while there's a certain record I want you to mix. Cool. Like we had a good relationship like that, and eventually it just kind of like got too busy with them. But I started to realize like what it turned into was maybe I was taking too much control, and they were okay with that. They were okay with me taking the direction and the control, but when it really came down to like, hey, like I would want to get the paperwork set up. I want to like do this right because I know you're contributing music to it. I'm contributing music to it. I'm mixing and recording and mastering most of it though, like all of the major stuff. And I'm starting to recognize they're not bad people and I didn't do anything wrong.
They're
What I,
just not taking it as serious as you do, and that
mm-hmm.
comes back to the people pleasing aspect. Is like you'll be nice to this individual who doesn't take it as serious as you, and you're like trying to get them up to speed. Like, no, bro, that motherfucker's gonna get up to speed, or that motherfucker's gonna get left in the dust. Like, like
Yeah.
it's blunt. It's harsh to say that, but like, people are either gonna get the fuck up to speed with their BMI, their distribution, their sound exchange, all that. I'm dropping gems right now. They're either gonna get up to speed with that shit, or they're gonna get left in the motherfucking dust, bro. Because I'm not I'm not gonna keep playing, bro. You know, like I'm not gonna keep trying to help people who don't want to fucking learn something.
I agree.
What the fuck do I look like trying to help somebody who doesn't want to learn nothing?
Yeah, and I think that that has been the most difficult thing. It is I think the hardest thing is recognizing when they don't want to learn. I think that that's always the hardest thing for
As
me.
soon as that flag pops up, you recognize it. You get silent. You observe. You sit back and you observe the situation, and then you just know what it is from there, and you know where you can move forward with them and where you can't. Because that in this, that you're gonna be people pleasing to try to get them up to speed, bro. That's you
This
can't be
is
doing
good
that.
to really think about too because it's like, okay, a lot of engineers are producers, right?
Hmm.
And you want to work with an artist and you think they're dope and they might even pay you for time to record with you. And it's just like, where do you draw the line with it? Like, I feel like that has always been what is important with this is like catching the red flags. It's like, if they're not willing to
But
do
see, once you
paperwork,
catch, that's the thing, is it's a delicate thing because once you catch the red
you
flag,
got to see how they react.
No, once you catch the red flag, it's about how you react. Do you react? It's all about how you react once you catch the red flag. Because if you react in a way of like, cause I mean, I've done it, bro. Like I've fucking snapped, you know what I mean, and like burnt a bridge off rip. But if
Yeah.
you approach it, if you approach it in like a calm, collective sense, like, okay, we've got what we've got. Let me know when you want to schedule again. These are the things that you can do to get up to speed with making this all legal, so on and so forth. If they don't do that, bro, like, I don't know, bro.
Just get your bread.
I've turned into an asshole a little bit with this shit.
Yeah, I'm starting to
So
realize, like, you know what? If an artist isn't going to pay me for that beat and they want to record over, they can pay for the recording time. They can pay me for the beat too. But if they're not going to be paying me for both of them, well, I'm sorry. I'm going to take my intellectual property somewhere else. And I think that that should be very clear with everybody. But it's about understanding, like, hey, there's certain artists that are willing to help build your brand and build you and build opportunity for you. And you should just at least be up to speed with how the paperwork works. So then when you guys get the
but
song
see
done,
that
it's just.
they see that
But
person.
it's
This
not
is what I was
expecting
talking
that.
about.
It's not
I
about
know this is
expecting that of anyone. It's understanding, like, you have to find someone who's willing. Once you address it, it's almost not even a question. It's, oh, yeah. Or
this
I don't know what it is, and they're willing to learn.
this is what I was talking about like tread lightly once you catch the red flag, because that person may not know shit about the fucking business side of shit, but they may have connections to go do shows. They may have connections. Fucking, they may just be popular, bro. They may not know shit about the business, but their shit's popping. And shit, that's something to lean on. Like that's a mutual benefit, but you got to be able to recognize the opportunity with that. If that
Okay.
person's popping, if they've got notoriety or people know who they are, you don't want to burn that bridge. You
Okay.
know, so just tread lightly when you catch the red flag. You may understand that they're not up to speed, but that don't mean they can't get up to speed, and that don't mean you can't lean on their shit. And then once they see what you're doing with the business shit, they want to lean on your shit, and then it's mutually reciprocated.
Okay, good. So
You know
it's.
what I mean? So you don't want to burn that bridge. They may not be up to speed with BMI, Sound Exchange, and all that type of shit. You know what I mean? And knowing what those things are. Like they may not know that shit, but they may have connections. So you don't want to burn the bridge with them over that. You lean on them and get their community. Then they see what you're doing, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, we got to tap in with that too." And then you do it for them because they put you in their community.
Yeah, honestly.
It's just a give and take. There's got to be a give and take. And that's the thing about like you be firm about it, but not like an asshole. Like if you don't be an asshole about it and you're just firm about it, they're also gonna respect you too.
Yeah, I think that's super important with this because I've learned that that's what really people pleasing not only like made me feel like my time was wasted, but it burned a lot of long-term bridges that I had with people, but I had to recognize what it was is it wasn't equal give and take, and then it was me having to recognize my own communication. Like I knew
Mm-hmm.
how to communicate, I knew how to do things via email, I knew how to be very professional, but really what I didn't recognize was that their communication was telling me that they weren't as interested in doing the project as I was, and I was just bringing content, material, excitement, energy, and they liked that. But they
A
what
hundred, a
but
hundred.
they
I mean,
weren't,
I've been through that too.
and
I've been through
I
that
had to
too.
recognize that.
That also brings people back too, though. But
Hmm.
they'll also just take what they can get and bounce
But
too.
I think that's when we have to recognize, okay, once you've caught yourself in people pleasing with someone and that's your own red flag, how do you set the boundary back again? Like if you were like, hey, we both changed and we both have seen that, like what do you think is a good way to address it and be like, more firm about, hey, we're doing the business?
I think the best way to address it is fall off the map, go into fucking isolation, start working like a motherfucker, and let them see your success and what you're doing, and then they're gonna tap in.
Fair enough.
Like I think that's the best thing you can do is like tap in with yourself, assess everything, learn from everything, and then just it'll come to you. Everyone will come back. Everyone circles back around.
It's very true. I feel that too. I feel like deep down, some of the people I stopped working with have been watching me for a while just to see what the fuck I've been doing and like wanting to see. I think the other thing too is the other reason why people pleasing can be bad is like sometimes you people please the wrong person and you get around a crowd of people that really don't they know what you bring to the table, but they don't actually want to support you. They want to support the idea of their own you helping them become successful, but they know that
Well,
they don't want to
also
invest in it.
that for me, I've also gotten to the point too where like if I see an artist that their shit's hot, bro, I'm sharing that shit, and I don't give a fuck if they share my shit. Like I don't get like it's shine, go shine, bro. You gonna circle back, like just go shine. Like it ain't about you shining right now. It ain't
Yeah,
about it's not about that. It's about are you comfortable with letting homie shine before you shine? Are you comfortable with like are you able to get your ego out of the way to let somebody else shine? Like you know what I'm saying? Like that's a huge thing is letting your ego get out of the way and letting somebody else shine. Like that's and then your time. Everybody's time to shine is it's always everybody's got their time to shine
yeah,
at whatever. But are you comfortable with homie that's popping on the internet that don't share your shit, don't like your shit? Are you secure enough within yourself to click the share button?
right,
That's real.
right. I think a lot of us lose sight of that. Is like some people think that's people pleasing when really that's not. That's actually like a good form of trying to spread the word and like trying to communicate new ideas, new thoughts. Whereas like I think when it becomes people pleasing, which sometimes that happens too, where like you get with a group of people that they're talented, they're dope, and you see the potential in them, and you're sharing them, and you still
I'm
support
still
them.
guilty. I'm still guilty of it. I got a soft spot for some homies right now. I'm still guilty of that shit. But you know what? That's because them motherfuckers showed me love when I was in the dirt, bro. Like for real. But there's two. You got to separate them, bro. There's
Yeah,
business and there's personal, and they kind of mix and bob and weave with each other when you're doing this shit. But you still can't just like give up your power, bro. Like you really gotta stand, hold your ground, and help people shine. And
yeah.
that's what it's about, bro. It's about everybody shining, bro. If you ain't trying to let everybody shine, bro, this is not the fucking game for you. Because if you can't handle somebody else's success, how the fuck can you handle your own? For real.
That's so true. I agree, man, because I really think that working with people that are more successful than you and like really they know something you don't, like even if you think you know more and you've studied this, you've done that, clearly they have something that's working for them. And I think that you know what is important about talking about people pleasing is if you're involved with these kinds of people, they catch on to that stuff. Like I
Oh
really think
yeah,
the higher up I've
100%.
gotten, they catch on to when you're just people pleasing and yes manning.
Oh,
uh
they'll feast off of it too. If they know that they can get you to just give them shit, they're just gonna be like, okay. I mean, this dude doesn't know that he's just giving us shit. So
that I mean that's definitely at a label side, and what I've learned is what that really means is um you might get an opportunity with a big artist, but then you don't recognize that you not knowing the business side, or you not knowing that you should lawyer up and send them a cease and desist because they haven't hit you up in months, like is really how you're able to get these opportunities to actually stick. Because even if it is the hottest label, it is the hottest artist, if you're not on your P's and Q's and you're people pleasing, they're gonna look at that as, hey, it's free money, bro. Thank you. That's and,
100%.
and
And then
yep.
people get excited in these big money situations. People get excited when they're like, "Oh, we're here. I'm just glad to be here." And so people start doing shit that they shouldn't doing because they're here and they're happy that they're not in the fucking sleeping on the floor again. You know, it's like they're happy they're there, so they that's just solidifying that for me too by me even speaking on that shit. Like,
Yeah, like
you know what
just
I'm saying?
be happy that we're here right now, and like I think that this is the other thing that I'm starting to realize is that people pleasing doesn't bring you to the present moment. It either drags you in the past or it brings you to the future of the anxiety of losing somebody or losing a connection. So I think that ultimately one of the ways that you can
You
defeat the
gotta
people
separate the
pleasing.
two. You gotta separate the two, the emotions and the business. You
Well,
gotta
but
be
what I
able
was
to have that mind state to be able to separate the two and differentiate when you are being emotional about a situation and when you're handling the business. It's yin and yang in business just like it is in life.
Well, what I was gonna say was, is that means that ultimately being in the present moment is the one of the biggest ways to really be prepared for it, because ultimately what you have to do is recognize if they're coming at you with an emotional appeal or if they're coming at you with a business appeal, and how you need to be aware of
Well,
like of that and just
the
be
entertainment business is all it's all emotional and all pulling on heartstrings. The whole entertainment business, that's all it is. It's pulling on heartstrings. So that's why a lot of people don't really excel in this because they get too wrapped up in the emotions or they get too wrapped up in the business and they don't have that energetic balance to see it all the way through because they're so tied up in the emotions to it. Like when you got to think, the entertainment industry, you watch a movie, what is it doing? It's evoking an emotion. When you listen to music, what is it doing? It's evoking an emotion. Now, if you get too wrapped up in that, bro, this is, you know what I'm saying? Like it'll destroy you. It'll destroy you in this industry. It's either gonna make you or break you.
right. It's not about being controlled by your emotions. It's not also totally about controlling your emotions. It's about being present with your emotions and then allowing them to guide part of the decision making process, because I think that is a good thought, because even in the way that I would mix records, sometimes I would listen to the record and really think about what the emotion of the record is. Like, how do I want this record to make me feel? Not just how does this record make me feel? How do I want this record to make me feel? And
But then
like,
separating that once you get to the business side, like yeah, we love doing this music shit. 100%.
right,
We go
I
to the
sent
mic.
you this mix and I worked my heart into it, but I have to recognize when, dude,
You
this
have
is
to
draw
be
the
able to
line. This is
separate.
business, you know?
You have to separate. Like I'll go spill out your emotions on this microphone, and then now we gotta go do business with what you spilled out on the microphone. Can you separate the two?
And
That's a fucking
that's a
that's a
big red flag too. That's one of the ones where it's like, if you notice that they you know, if they're on that path and you address it to them and they continue the path even though you've brought it to their awareness, you know, that's when you know it's a big red flag with working with the person, because they're not willing to. They might get too emotional and do some shit where they're going to try and like burn the bridge, or they might try to get emotions out of the equation with what they're doing and just go straight business, and it just not actually bring any quality content. Like they're just like trying to get all these songs done. They've got these ideas, but they're just flushing shit out. And I've definitely been that person before where I'm like, yo, I'm going to make 10 beats. I'm going to make 5 beats in a day because I can. But what you realize is output isn't necessarily the best if input isn't necessarily the best. Like that, I think the more you can focus on trying to make that sound that you want to make, like as much as you listen to someone else and want to be focused and help somebody, I've learned that the more that you can be original, the better it just tends to be. Like the easier it tends to flow, but also just like the quality. Like it's something where you're not trying as hard. You're really like trusting your intuition in the mix, in the songwriting process, in like the whole thing. So I think
I think that's a good place to end it. It's
Yeah,
just
like
like,
right here is just realizing, hey, catch yourself. Like it's easy to people please in this industry, and I think being aware of like the transactional aspects um of it, not just like, what's going on at a corporate level, but like as a business to business level with artists, producers, engineers, and even graphic designers. Like, we all have to recognize what our real value is, and that as much as we think someone's dope or talented, you got to separate your emotions enough to recognize that this is business. But don't get us wrong, it's very easy for us to fall into the traps because there's new ways that you can get triggered by this. So just remember being as present as you can to
and
what's
don't
going
people
on.
please, and
Don't
don't
people
people please.
Right, and the way that to best avoid it is to be in the present moment with how you feel and the emotion that you have attached to it, and recognize you don't have to respond in the way that they want you to respond. You respond in the way that you were supposed to respond, and don't lose sight of you. Please yourself. Just don't jerk off every day.
Yeah, just don't people please, and
Yeah.
don't. Yeah. All right.